Hello, everyone. Welcome to day, was it 4 of NDC Sydney? Who here has been here all 4 days? Cool. Did anyone go on the boat last night? Welcome. I'm surprised you're here. Congratulations. Give yourselves a round of applause for showing up. Is anyone here with a sponsor of NDC? Please stand up. Come on, do it. All right, everybody clap. Thank you. It's without the sponsorship that we would not be here, so thank you very much for sponsoring NDC. All right, so today I am Heather Wilde, and this is Choice is Overrated, Designing Products That Know What You Want Before You Do. This is the most hated slide that I do, but I do it because if you don't talk about yourself, no one else will. So I'm going to go through this real quick. I am the CTO of a company called Twit and also of Rocketeer. That means I'm very busy, as well as speaking here. I'm also busy designing products for these two companies. I've had 20 plus years of customer experience design. It means I am older than I look. And I am currently the only female advisory board chair to an engineering school in the world, which is pretty cool, I think. And I was one of the founding employees of a company called Evernote, which is automatically installed on many of your phones and computers by default, so you're welcome. And also an early employee at Spirit Airlines, which is currently the most profitable airline in the United States, which is also pretty cool, I think. I've gotten a lot of awards and stuff, and I currently write for Inc., Forbes, and Tech.co, so I'm responsible for a lot of clickbait you see on the internet. Again, you're welcome. So we make 35,000 conscious and unconscious decisions every single day. Stop and think about that for a second. Just from the time you've been walking in here, you've been making probably around 150 decisions just from the time you sat down. Am I in the right talk? Why is she wearing that dress? Did I eat the right thing for lunch? Should I really have gone on that boat trip last night? Why am I not talking to Troy Hunt right now? This is the kind of thing that you are talking about and thinking about in your head. These things are not always conscious, but they contribute to something called decision fatigue. And as designers, it's our fault when we design things like that. Every single day, we have to keep filling out forms on the internet and making sure that we're actually doing things in a way that makes sense. So, for example, this is a real form from a donation site, a charity, asking people to donate money. By the time you've gotten just to your address, to enter your email, which is like halfway down the page, you're given up on the fact that you want to actually give money to this thing and you go away. There's a better way, people. By the end of the day, people are so tired that they don't even know what to Google anymore. They're asking, this is a real screen cap. I didn't make this up. If you go into Google and you say, how do I, actually Google shows up. How do I Google something is a top hit on Google. And it actually makes sense if you think about it, because people are trying to figure out how do you enter the syntax to make a Google search pop up. In fact, some people try to figure out what is it that they can type in to make somebody's results pop up in another way. And I have friends all the time that are like, how do you make your results look different than mine when you're typing in the same things? Well, it's interesting. But it's just you're so tired by the end of the day that everybody pretty much looks like this now. You get home from work after making so many decisions. By the end of the day, you're already at like 25,000 decisions just by the time you've gotten to home from work that you don't want to do anymore. So we create products like this, like the Amazon Alexa. And they're meant to help us, right? So we're now asking the Alexa, Alexa, what's the weather? And then we hope that it gives us the right temperature. But then we have to make sure that we've programmed it first to tell us where we're located in the world and what we have to do. And maybe it's going to ask us, do you want it from the Weather Channel? Or do you want it from Weather Underground? Or do you want it from somewhere? No more decisions. Please, just give me the weather.
Okay, so I've been trying to get my phone to show me pictures of a mowed lawn. It's been like 5 tries already, but it doesn't seem to work. Okay, Google, can you show me pictures of a mowed lawn?
Pictures of
Oh my god. Okay, Google, can you show me pictures of a mowed lawn?
pictures of some old lawn. Here you go.
No, oh, mowed. Okay, Google, can you show me pictures of mowed lawn?
Check out these pictures for small lawn.
Okay, Google, please show me pictures of a mowed lawn.
Check out these pictures for a lawn clone.
You can't tell me that this hasn't happened to you.
Okay, Google, this is my last try. Can you show me pictures of a mowed lawn?
Powdery mildew fungus.
Okay, Google, can you shut down?
It can't even do that.
Okay, Google, bye-bye.
So when we design products, we want to account for everything. If we're not anticipating our users, then we're not going to give the best chance. So, I mean, Google, a lot of us use OK Google or Hello Siri or all of these things that are meant to help us, or even Hey Alexa. But if the skills aren't working the way they're supposed to because we're not accounting for people's different accents, then it's not really helpful. And everybody has autocorrect fails. Every single day this is a problem. I can't tell you how many times I've turned off autocorrect and then it turns itself back on every time there's an update. So it's really, it's such a part of our technology now that people are just used to trying to automatically translate autocorrect from other people. So what we need to make sure is that we do not cause these kind of problems when we're already at our cap. If we are designing things that are making people so, if we're trying to design something that's easy and people are just at their wits' end already, then it's a problem. So companies are trying to help. So Amazon has created something called the dash button. And I know Amazon's not big here in Australia yet, but it's coming. And the dash button is something that is pretty cool because it's meant to anticipate products that you order not all the time, but sometimes. So for example, this is something that you stick on your washing machine to, when you realize that you're running out of washing powder, you click the dash button and then it'll send it to you within 2 days. And then over time, it learns how frequently you're going to need it, so then it can just add it to your subscribe and save without you needing to do the dash button. Magic is a service that you have in the US where it's integrated in iMessage, also in Facebook chat, where you can send it just, I want this done, and then they just ask one little bit of information, and then because they're integrated with your contact list, they have most of the information for you, and they can then do things. However, it's not truly anticipatory because you still do need to invoke it. Who here thinks Netflix is a really good example of anticipatory design? Exactly. So Netflix is terrible for this because every time you open it up, how long does it take on average to pick a movie or TV show? Yeah, like 15 to 20 minutes, right? Or longer. My friends and I have started to do something called Netflix Roulette, where we just close our eyes and point. Because if you spend too long, like what they've started to do is have about an infinite scroll in each direction for TV shows, which is not anticipatory at all. What it's trying to do is actually help their data algorithm to pick out what you are going to pick in the end. However, that's not helpful to the user because now with all the decisions that you've had to make, you're already fatigued and you can't possibly pick something. So if it's going to take you half an hour to relax, then you're not really relaxing. However, there are 2.5 quintillion bytes of data produced every single day because of all of those decisions we're making online, all of those things that we're entering on Facebook, all of the things that we're doing without even knowing it, like those eye tracking things that we install into our software to capture heat mapping information. Even the things, like all of the data that we type in Facebook Messenger and iMessage and stuff that then suddenly, somehow magically becomes retargeted ads within Facebook. And we're like, how did that happen? That goes into the 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. And I have no idea what that looks like, but it probably looks something like this. And it's just a lot of data over and over again. So much data that it actually has to be transported by things like sneaker nets still. People are actually carrying hard drives in FedEx planes around the world because it's so much it can't even be carried by the pipes. But it allows us to do something pretty cool. We actually now can tell the future. We can start predicting what people want because if we're using AI to do this, we have a higher degree of personalization available. And that's pretty darn cool. So now we actually start to be able to create these anticipatory experiences. Because we have so much data available, we can do some awesome stuff with it. Ideally, with an anticipatory system, we're going to limit the options that people have. We're going to cut back on those decisions they have to make and then make them a happier, healthier person so that they can actually use a product that makes them happier. So here is the basic blueprint for something that has anticipatory design. It is the crossbones of machine learning, user experience, and IoT. So think about that for a second. You've got an actual bit of hardware, something, an IoT device. And that's very important because you have to have something that allows you to get the input. Now that can be an Alexa, it can be a Nest device, it can even be some application that you've created for an iPhone. Like it can be an app. However, it needs to be some kind of input device that you're using to collect data. Then you've got your machine learning algorithms crunching lots and lots of data. And you've got beautiful design. And that's key too. It needs to be beautiful. You can't just have some janky thing that you paid somebody on Fiverr to do. This has to be absolutely gorgeous or people aren't going to pay attention to it. And we're talking like Joni Ives kind of gorgeous. Now, when you're doing it, you don't have to be right all the time. And that's the cool thing. So there's a company in America that happens to also be around the world called Starbucks. You might have heard of them. That's doing something anticipatory with their ordering. They have the Starbucks app, and if you install it on your phone, they're using a combination of NFC and beacon technology, plus your ordering history to know what things you like. So if you are near certain stores, they will pop up a notification that says, come on in, your coffee's ready. Your coffee's ready. You haven't ordered it. How do they know what you want? How'd they know you were there? Well, hey, if my coffee's ready, I'm going to go in and pick it up, right? That's pretty cool that they already knew. And if what's cool about it is that the coffee's not actually ready. They don't start making it until they sense that you're walking into the store. But then by the time you're at the counter, the coffee is ready. So, but they have an idea based on your past purchases of exactly what one you would want, based on the different times of day, what your purchases would be. So what's interesting about that is if you show up at a Starbucks at 4 in the afternoon and they hand you a coffee that's automatically charged to your account, you don't even have to do anything about it, and it wasn't exactly what you really wanted then, but somebody just handed you a coffee, would you drink it? Probably. You're probably like, yes, somebody just handed me a drink. Woohoo, I got a present. Even though you're paying for it. And that's what Amazon's goal is. Amazon is hitting it big because every time somebody gets a box from Amazon, they're like, I got a present. It doesn't matter that I had to pay for it. I get a new box and I get to open it all the time. So it's that loyalty that is bringing people back. So they're doing things right. And we're going to get into a little bit more about that in a second. So here's how, again, this works. It's just another way of showing you what the anticipatory design is. So you have to collect this data. You have to have some means of collecting it. And then you create a way of reading it. You have to have a way of crunching that number. And then you get to anticipate things. And so who here is a data scientist in the room? Anybody? Yeah, cool. So world is getting really fun for you guys the more data there is. And anybody that was not a data scientist, come and talk to these ones after this talk because they're very important. Because you cannot do anticipatory design without having a good data science consultant or a data scientist on your team. So here are some good examples of anticipatory design. In Google Maps, they not only now are showing how, like when you search for something, they're actually giving you Uber results when you're searching, because they're assuming that not only will you want to have some kind of transit to places, it's not just maps now, but also when you're searching for restaurants, they're assuming you might want to book a table there. And then, interestingly, if you do book a table, in the email it says, would you like to book an Uber to get there? So it's a completely integrated thing. And not just Uber, but in whatever country you're in, it has the local taxi apps as well. So if you're in Europe, you'll get Get and Halo. If you're in America, you'll have Uber and Lyft. So here, it was just Uber that popped up for me, but I'm sure as others come in, there'll be others. In Uber, the anticipatory application for it is you open it up, it already knows, or it already assumes that you are starting from where you're at. So it wants you to point in where you're going. Now you can override that and tell it you want to start from somewhere else, like if you're booking for someone else. But it's anticipating that you want to start from where you are at. So that is a saving steps moment for people. Nest is a really awesome hardware device that when you get it, it has certain settings out of the box where all you need to do is punch in your zip code, your postal code for it, and based on the settings around you from what they already know from their massive amounts of data, it will then automatically program the Nest with some general settings for your area, for temperature, for what the people around you generally use. And then from there, it learns beyond that what your personal preferences would be. For example, I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is a desert and generally hot in the summer and cool, very cool in the winter. So people tend to keep it hotter in the houses in the summer, around 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is what, like 32 or 24 here, something like that. So when people set that, instead of having it at 72, it would be around 80. Now, if I was in New York, it would be around 72 in the summer. So based on the zip code, it automatically knows that. Digit is an app that anticipates your spending patterns and will hide money from you so that you can actually save money, because most of us are terrible at that now. I don't know about you, but if I have an app that knows that I'm bad at saving money and finds ways to squirrel it away from me, I'm all for that. And that's how Digit works. It knows, for example, that I might spend money at Starbucks on Mondays and Thursdays, so it'll take the money on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays as well that I would spend on Starbucks and hide that. So suddenly I've got extra money in a savings account that I wouldn't already have. Project Soli is a hardware anticipatory device. it's guessing what people would actually use as gestures. It's trying to figure out if you would know what like a hand knob turn or a volume knob turn would be in the air, whether there's no volume knob at all. So so it's trying to sense and anticipate what you would actually do to conduct music in your house. So if you're just sitting on the couch, what gestures would you use to raise the volume of music or lower it? And by creating an anticipatory experience with hardware, that's what that kind of looks like. My company, Twit, one of the things that we do is we anticipate what kind of trips people will want to go on based on their personality. So we have created not only a behavioral assessment to understand the personality that people have when they're traveling, but we've also taken a lot of data from not only the web and people's, like all of that information out there about people, but we've taken the data from available trips and matched that together to understand these are the best trips to recommend to people. And as more data comes in, we'll be able to have a better recommender engine for them. Medium has a very cool thing that I recommend all of you that are product designers start doing right now. Instead of having a password reset, they have an email link. So nowhere does it say reset password because everybody hates having their password reset. What they do is instead of reset password, it just says email me a link to sign in. Because if you can't remember what your password is, if you can't remember what it is, then you just want to be able to sign in. So they're anticipating the next step beyond that. So this is absolutely awesome anticipatory design there. So we've all heard of the Uncanny Valley. This is where machine learning has an uncanny valley. It's a really big problem because you end up with, okay, people are okay when you suggest movie recommendations. It's fine. And we're okay with glass holes walking around like with taking pictures of us and stuff. We're not cool with very, very bad recommendations. Like if I walked into Starbucks and they handed me unicorn frappuccinos all the time, I'd be really freaking pissed at them. So like if they didn't learn that I was ditching those in the trash every time, then that would be a problem. But if every single thing that Amazon was sending me and suggesting to me, and if everything in my subscribe and save box was perfect, or most of it was, I'd be super happy. And so would you. I'm willing to bet. So what happens when it goes wrong? In the US, Target, I don't know if you have Target here, but they used some machine learning to figure out what purchases would work for people, like they crunched the numbers to figure out if they could predict certain buying patterns for people. And what they did was find that if you had unscented lotion, mineral supplements, and cotton balls, that you were likely pregnant, like if you were buying these things. So they then signed you up for like their Target Baby option and started sending you coupons for prenatal supplements and diapers and things like that. Unfortunately, a father in Minnesota got these addressed to his 15-year-old daughter and was wondering what it turned out, indeed, she was pregnant. Target knew it ahead of time, and she was very much in trouble. So when you're doing things wrong, you need to make sure that you have a way out. It's no problem if Netflix suggests the wrong movie. It is a big problem if Target tells you you're pregnant before your doctor does. And if you think about things where algorithms are suggesting people to be targeted at airports, that's another big problem. So we need to be very careful about what we're anticipating. So you want to make sure that you have the right amount of data and that you're analyzing it right. And that's where these guys will come in handy as well, because they'll give you the right filter to look at it. So Amazon is a very, very popular company because they do three things very well. They provide convenience for one-stop shopping. They remember what you bought when you bought it, and they recommend other products for you. And that's extremely cool because they have jumped to the top of the charts around the world for that. There's very few companies, like Rakuten does that, and very few others. So Amazon is doing that, but they're also at the forefront of design. They've filed a patent for anticipatory shipping. They're testing this out in various places. Las Vegas is one of them, where the idea is, this is from their patent, the idea is that they will have, within 15 minutes of your ordering, the product that you have ordered exactly to your doorstep. And how do they know that? Well, it's based on your usage patterns on the internet, not just on Amazon, and also on your previous buying power. They'll know, I mean, they generally have it down to 2 items already. And they're testing this out with something called Amazon Prime Now in certain cities in America. What it does is they've checked to see, they have different distribution centers where they can deliver things within an hour. And it's the most popular items, but it's also like some items that you're like, why on earth would this be? Well, again, it's based on people's preferences, that they have them in these shipping centers so that they can get to them within an hour. So it's kind of creepy, though, to some people that how can Amazon know the exact thing that I want before I even knew I wanted it? Well, how many times have you been to a forum to ask questions about a TV, like the inputs on your TV were going out, or you wanted to know if something was compatible with a PlayStation that you had or something? There's questions that are predictors of, and behaviors are predictors of what we're going to do. And we're not the only ones in the world that do them. So by not just doing them on Amazon, even the reviews that we read on Amazon are often enough information to know what product we're going to end up with in the end. So Amazon is just starting the corner of the market on that. So now we're going to get into how to turn something into an anticipatory experience. The first thing you need to do is imagine whatever your business is as a service. If you're already a service, you're ahead of the curve. But if you're not a service, if you're just a product, whether it's a hardware product or a software product, then you're not there yet. It has to be some kind of a platform where it can scale. And once you can serve your users some way, then you have the beginnings of an anticipatory product. Then, simple, but you need to create digital access to it. So even if you have a platform, if it's not a digital platform, you're not there yet. Like you could have an API, great, but if it's just a hidden API that's plugged into something that nobody can access, not great. So make sure that you have some kind of digital access where you can gather data, and you're good. Now, find ways to automate. Because if you are a service delivering a product, and you have no way to automate that, then you're not scalable. And we need to scale into the many, 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 many millions upon millions upon millions amounts of data, and you can't do that with just random Deliveroo drivers running around. So there is a great amount of, I mean, Deliveroo is great, for example, but they're still not going to be able to get the massive amounts of data to predict people's buying patterns. Then launch an automated service, because now that you've got the ability to, launch it. How many people have created something or thought about something forever and never got it to launch? Exactly. Launching it is 90% of the way there. And once it's launched, yay, you're done, right? No. OK, now You have to actually figure out what your users can live without. And here's the anticipatory part, because it's a real ethical question of, you know better than them what they need, right? Because you're the product designer, you're the creator. So what is it that you can take away? You've got all these features, you've got everything that they need, but what is it that they can do? What is it that they need to do? Spotify is a perfect example of this. Spotify used to require you to create playlists when you came in. And you couldn't really do anything until you added all your friends and listened to what they did and searched and everything. Now, Spotify has a great feature where it has automated playlists. You go in, there's 6 buttons, super anticipatory, you just hit a button and it starts playing music. Awesome. It also searches your friends' histories to see what they're listening to. And it'll start playing, if you want it to, it'll start playing based on what they're playing. It's great too. They actually stole that one from Pandora, but that's cool. So with Spotify, they're anticipating that the reason you're going into Spotify is you want to listen to music. That's it. So you know what the homepage of Spotify has? It doesn't have menu, options, settings. It has listen to music. And then there's a settings gear hidden in the library, which is 3 pages away, because they don't want you to have to deal with that. So knowing what you can hide, knowing what's distracting is the key to anticipatory design. Then analyze it. You've got a lot of data that's coming in. So pay attention. If you've got outliers, that's okay. Contact those people, figure out what's going wrong with them. Maybe there's somebody that's colorblind and you need to account for that. If you've got a whole bunch of people that are suddenly dropping off after you took out a button, then you better put that button back because you screwed up. But you need to understand what people are actually using, and a lot of times you're going to be right. You're going to choose the right things because you know your product better than the customers do. And if you actually go on vision, on purpose, then you're going to design the right things. But keep analyzing, do micro experiments all the time, and you'll be able to tell exactly where the right things are. But the aim of this should be to simplify things. When Spotify took their menu and hid it in the library, it wasn't trying to make things difficult on people to get to the settings. It was to make it simpler so that you didn't have clutter when you were looking to start music. Now, for those of us, when we do have to go to the settings, we're like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the library to get to the settings, to the whatever. But how often do you have to do that? Probably not that frequently. So yes, it may be annoying then, but it's simple for everyone else most of the time. And everything that is on that screen should add value. So whatever you have should be a valuable interaction. Like Spotify again, those 6 things that are anticipatory are valuable to the user. They are something that makes a difference, and if they didn't make a difference, they shouldn't be there. If they weren't valuable, stick them on a foreign screen or get rid of them altogether. Make it an Easter egg. Because if it doesn't add value, if it's not simple, and if it's not a beautiful design, if it's clunky and you're shoehorning it in, get rid of it. It shouldn't be there. And please, people, prepopulate your forms. You should not have any reason that you don't know people's information, that there's things that you can hide. Like if you already know somebody's browser information, if you've got a reasonably good information about their email address because you're getting it from a newsletter, you should probably know what their first name is too if it's coming from a newsletter. You should know in the back end what their browser information is and what their geolocation is. There's so many bits of information you can pre-populate right now. If you're not doing that, you fail. You fail, you fail. So please, make sure you're pre-populating as much information as possible, and don't have more than probably more than 5 things on one screen at a time. It's okay to have multiple screens for people to go through, but if they see a big, long form, they're just going to get so tired and they're going to leave, especially if you're somebody that's trying to get money from someone. If you're trying to get money, think Stripe. They don't even ask for your name. They just ask for the credit card information and done. And you need the name later, but really, all I want is your money. Just give me your money, people. That's it. So like, they got it down to a science that it's like, yes, what is the most important thing that will add the most value here? Your credit card. That's it. All right, done. Let's move on.
It's Monday. You better leave 15 minutes early. Oh. Smart things. Life like never before.
Pretty cool, huh? Like, we're living in the future. This is stuff that I was promised I would get when I was a kid, and I'm like, yes, okay, so it's 20 years late. I was supposed to have this in like 1999, whatever. It's here now. So what are we gonna do next? Where's the next stuff? Like, great, I've got an oven that makes dinner for me. Awesome. So what are you guys gonna think of next? So our phones are already having conversations with each other, which is awesome. And Elon Musk is totally freaked out about bots talking to each other, which is great too, because he's afraid of all sorts of things. But he's also gonna take us to Mars, so we'll give him that one. We have an amazing opportunity to create such amazing things, and I'm so excited about this time. So I just want to leave you with a quote from one of my inspirations, Buckminster Fuller. Who here knows who Buckminster Fuller is? Yeah, cool. He's the guy, he's a crazy dude that invented like the geodesic domes. If anyone's ever seen Spaceship Earth at Disney World, he invented that. But he basically said that integrity is the essence of everything successful. And that's something that you need to keep in mind when you're creating an anticipatory experience, because you are going to be taking away choices from a user. And if you are not ethical about those things that you're taking away, then it's going to cause a big problem. But if you have integrity about what you're doing, if you are on point, if you're on purpose, then the things that you design will be beautiful and will last for a long time. So with that, I'm going to open up the floor to questions, and that's where the Duckie Brigade comes into play. Anyone that asks a question gets a duck. So if you want one of these, you need to ask a question, all right? So who here has any questions to ask? Come on. All right, do we have a microphone for?
Hi, so what exactly would you do to figure out the trade-off between this is a piece of information that I can hide from somebody versus this is a piece of information that is necessary?
Okay, so that's where I would always go to the simplest thing possible. What is go down to what are the basic elements of your application? What is it supposed to do? So think about the Apple iPod. What, at essence, is the iPod? It's something that you listen to music. So they took away everything except the toggle switch from the iPod. The original iPod didn't even have a display screen on it. And when you're designing something that's anticipatory, always go back to thinking about the iPod, the original iPod, where the only thing on it was a way to advance music. So where you could connect it to the computer and then add more things, but that was like the hidden menu. So what is the very essence of your product? And your basic design should allow your users to do that and then hide everything else. And that's where I go. So. Nice catch. Anyone else? All right.
You spoke a little bit about sort of what happens, that you need to feed back information when you get it wrong and sort of recover gracefully from that. It seems like working out why it was wrong is going to be a really huge challenge. Can you speak a little bit as to how you could figure that out?
Here's where customer service comes in. I know as engineers, we don't like to talk to people. It's really hard, and we don't like that. But when we notice and also like we're anonymizing data, so it's difficult. So when you're looking at the data on a big scale, you don't know that this is an actual person. However, people that are having a problem, you can then send out a mass survey when you notice that there's issues to your users and say, hey, can you give us feedback? And then they will give you feedback, and then you can use that. Another thing is if you are a public entity, people will often use things like iTunes reviews and Amazon reviews and all sorts of things like that. And then you can read those and be really sad about the hateful things. And if anyone was in my talk yesterday about your customers hate you, there's many things that you can learn from your customers. But talking to them and really understanding and filtering that feedback is an amazing way to tell. And that's why, like, for example, at Evernote, when we released an iPhone version that was green on green with green text, very different shades of green, but suddenly our downloads were terrible, we figured out quickly that it was because while it looked beautiful on the latest version of iPhone, most of our users didn't have the latest and greatest, and it looked terrible on the older ones. So they just stopped downloading it and just used it in the desktop. And we asked them, and that was why. So, let's see, can I do this? No, but it was close. All right.
I just wanted to get your opinion on, do you think the predictive interfaces would hinder some people's choice to change? Like you mentioned the example of the Starbucks coffee. Let's say people want to change or try something new. Would that discourage people from, or changing, making different choices?
So with when you've got a good anticipatory product, you actually can then recommend things to people as well. So Starbucks is actually really good at that too, where they actually did, and there's a video of me if you want to check it out on YouTube, where Starbucks sent me 2 unicorn frappuccinos, one for me to try and one for a friend to try, just because they knew one, I'm the unicorn whisperer, and 2, I love Starbucks. So I was at home one day and a person showed up at my house from Postmates with 2 unicorn frappuccinos. And I was like, wow, that's really anticipatory of them. So then I went on YouTube, of course, and live streamed my reaction to it. So it's really funny. You might want to look that up. But yeah, so you can push out things based on what you know of your users, and you can keep testing that and testing that. And that's what Target was trying to do with their Target Baby. The problem is when you're dealing with personal preferences, like there's very certain things that you can't touch. Like they didn't realize that baby stuff is very personal, just like you don't want to touch politics or religion either. So there's very, very specific things that you want to stay away from, but it's okay if they suggest the wrong drink at Starbucks. So learn what's good and what's bad. All right, I might hit you in the head when I do this, so hold on a second. Oh, very not close. Yay! All right, all the way up here.
Heather, you spoke about the target issue and when a vendor wouldn't look at somebody's information, but what about as a consumer? Is there technologies or guidelines for how people can indicate their preferences about how much of their data they want to have inspected?
Absolutely. So any company that is collecting your data is required to let you know that they're collecting your data. So you can then go into your preferences and say, do not collect my data. If you live in the EU, and I know some of you do, Google allows you to opt out from being indexed by Google. Every company says, when you're on your Android phone, when you install an application, it goes through what things it asks you to use. So if you want the ability to have your data tracked, then you can say, absolutely, go for it. And for other things, it's like, no. So I am one, like, because I know how a lot of this works, what I do is before I install a new application, I check to see what the security policies for the companies are, what their track records. Do they have a responsible disclosure program? That's a very important thing for me. If they do have a responsible disclosure program, then I know that they're actually on top of security and they're going to be taking good care of my data. That doesn't mean that they're not going to have a problem at some point in time. That doesn't mean that they may not have a data breach, because I'm sorry, people, but everybody gets breached at some point in time. That is a fact. That is not something that companies can do. But the way that they get breached, the amount of data that's taken and the type of data that's taken is what can be taken care of. So yeah, if you want to opt out of things, then any good company will be able to let you know that. Good catch. Oh, I didn't want you to move that.
On the topic of data tracking, do you think it should be opt-in or opt-out by default?
Well, I actually prefer it to be opt-in by default because I know that the data is going to be anonymized. So it's going to be used for you in a silo and then anonymized as a whole. So any good company and well, I mean, these data guys can tell you that in general, like, the data is useless if your name's attached to it anyway. And for example, the reason that Stripe doesn't get your name is because it's useless to them to store your name with it. So what you need to do is store that information in a separate place. So data on large scale needs to be anonymized because your name is not important. So yeah, I think opt-in by default so that we can have this because you on your own are not useful to anticipatory design. You, as a person in the country of Australia, in the world, are extremely important. So, let's see. Good job. All right, anyone else? All right, well, cool. Thank you guys for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like the talk, there are green cards outside. If there were not, Troy Hunt has red cards right outside his talk, and I really appreciate it. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you.